There's a 2-minute grace period, so you get 58 minutes and lets you go for 2 more minutes, and then you can't do it anymore. Please manage your time wisely, and then good luck. This is the last piece of the class. Like everything is, there's no way you can get a single extra point in this class other than test 3. No extra credit. No, I'm really close. This is the absolute last chance you have to influence your grade. So you want to do well. I want you to do well. This is it. Like test number 3 is the last thing we have. So questions? No? You're good?
Professor, sorry, I came in like a minute late. When is the quiz again? Just to make sure, sorry, the test.
It's on the syllabus.
All right, so we're still going off that date?
Correct, yes.
Okay, got it. Making sure.
Okay. Sure.
That's it for me.
All right. I'll post the results. Everything will be posted at some point. As soon as I'll post the results for test 3 like I did for test 1 and test 2. That'll be the first thing I post. And then eventually, and what eventually is, I don't know, I'll get grades turned in on time. But I don't know exactly when I'll be posting the total points. So I'll post test 3 results as soon as I can. And then I have a couple hundred students. I have a lot of stuff to pull together to post final grades for everybody. And I will try to get that posted as fast as I can. As I mentioned before, I may for the total points add points to everyone's score. I don't know. We'll look at how things work. I may do that at the end of the year to total points. Of course, what I add to one person, I'd add to everyone because everyone is treated the same. But I don't know what's going to happen. I'll see how test 3 looks like. And most importantly, I'll see how the class looks like in terms of total points. Any questions? All right then, so let's look at some sample questions. So we do our best to assume the numbers on the paper is the actual results. Yeah, I mean, I think that you do the best you can for test number 3. Will there be points added on at the end? Maybe. We'll see how things go. But the safest thing is to go just on the points that you get. Obviously, I added points to test number 1 and test number 2. I may add points to the class at the very end. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how things work. Hang on just a second.
Oh, really?
What, Barbara? We haven't grabbed the top.
Yeah.
Huh? What is it?
Dude, one time we were talking about bad juju, right?
All right, my apologies.
And you were like, what's bad juju?
I just didn't want you to hear background noise from
Really? Crying?
the other tenants.
How old was I?
All right,
You were bad juju.
so there are test 3 review questions.
How old was
I don't remember.
We'll do 2 iterations like we did before with the previous test. The first round will not have, yes, they're having a little too much fun. The first round will not have questions about culture and ethics, but the last round will.
Hey, can you get me
All
pomegranate?
right,
What do you make?
so we'll go through them, and you have to let me know how the pacing is, and we will adjust it as need be. Now, we're starting with group and team questions, even though we did in lecture start with job design, but anyway, all the stuff is in there. So we'll start with groups and teams here. So I don't want to move all the slides. All right, so let's begin. It says Homer's group is having a conflict over who will lead the group. Make the screen bigger here.
Finished it.
According to the 5-stage model of group and team development, the next stage will be
That one was first stage, man.
Well, then finish the other one first.
none of the above.
I'm not gonna give God something I don't know what it is.
No, so this is Tuckman's 5-stage model. So if they're having a conflict over who will lead the group, that's the storming stage. So after the storming stage, we'd have the
Ina,
norming stage. So the answer would be B.
over there.
Sorry, I didn't read that second part.
No problem. I know it's kind of tricky because it's the next stage.
On the
Can you put the sets away?
catch, go away.
Let's see. Juby convened a group to help her deal with a sudden increase of complaints about customer service.
Well, they're
This
not-
group can be best described as a blank group.
Barbara, look at me.
They're not gonna let us do
Barbara, look at me. Just look at me.
it. Yeah. Put them away right now. They're not gonna let us do it.
Task force B?
This would be a task force, right? Because we see that they're not in different departments. This is it says nothing says they're from a different department, different functions. So it's nothing so it couldn't be a cross-functional, even though that's not one of the options there. It says nothing that they're friends. Clearly it's not informal, and they're not doing anything stuff that a manager would do
Hey,
here.
so
It's
don't
just,
go.
She's good.
so this would be a task force. The 5 stages of group development in order are forming, norming, storming, performing, and adjourning. This statement is false.
False.
It's supposed to be forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. So it says, do you know the right sequence of stages for Tuckman's 5-stage model of group and team development? All right, can we move on?
Yes.
Okay. This is more of a mental gymnastics, verbal gymnastics type thing. This is on stages, symptoms of groupthink. Which of the following is not a symptom of groupthink? Self-appointed mind guard, that is one of them. Now it's not none of the above. It is right. C, there's no such thing as an illusion of vulnerability. You have an illusion of invulnerability. So the answer is C. And these are discussed in your book, and of course we talked about them in lecture as well.
I like soy sauce.
Another recall question just from your book. Which of the following was identified as a way to reduce social loafing?
Yeah, even.
D?
That's right. D, all of the above. Your book talks about all of these things. This is a recall question from groups and teams.
Yeah, that's it. 4, 6, 8.
All right. Now let's move on to job design. Not only does Bort get to assemble the entire toaster, he's also responsible for checking to see if the toaster meets quality standards. In addition, Bort determines the pace at which he works and schedules repairs for the equipment used to make the components for the toaster. This best describes this would be enrichment. Because he's not just making a toaster, he's doing all this other stuff that a manager would do. That type of managerial thing. So this seems more like job enrichment, more like vertical loading.
But isn't it also flawed?
Pardon?
Oh, it's hot stuff.
It's not.
Isn't there also a flaw? Because if he is doing the quality standard check and making it, isn't that like contradictory? There could be issues with that.
Well, I'm not sure I understand your question. So he's doing,
I feel like he's grading his own exam, like a metaphor. He's grading his
I mean,
own
but
work.
that's why it's enrichment, because that's what you could do with enrichment. Like sometimes employees can evaluate their own performance, or the team can evaluate performance. But these things, determining pace, repairs, this is more managerial stuff, which makes it job enrichment.
Did you
Okay, I see.
No problem.
yourself, or did you just put it in like?
All right, any other questions about this? I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. That's the whole point of this. So thank you for that.
That's the same thing as a pomegranate, but we're making the pomegranate.
Of course, I'm going to ask you about the model, the job characteristics model, as well as the approaches to job design. So it says, according to Hackman and Oldham's job characteristics model, the 3 critical psychological states are that's right, C, knowledge of results, responsibility, and meaningfulness. So this is an application question. The previous one, and this is just a recall question. So the answer is C. D is from a song by Journey. It's an old band that you probably don't know. All right, this next one is really a groups and teams question. It's mixed in with this stuff, but it's fine since we have groups and teams on this test. Donnie and Marie are relying on each other to make their music magic. This relationship is most characteristic of what type of interdependence? That's so if I rely on you, you rely on me, that is reciprocal. Sequential would be if we're like on an assembly line, but this is if I rely on you, you rely on me, we need each other, that's reciprocal. Here we have the next one. Which of the following is an individual difference factor in Hackman and Oldham's job characteristics model?
You do it like what type of paperwork on paper?
And that's a good guess, but wrong because there's no guess at all. The answer is none of the above. What are the 3 individual difference factors?
That is. You always put them better problem.
Right, knowledge and skills. Whoa, slow down, yes. Growth needs strength. And finally, satisfaction with contextual factors, the work content. Do you see any of those there? That's right, you don't. So the answer is none of the above. Thank you for walking through that with me. All right, you're quiet on this. You understand this?
Where'd you get this stuff from? Where'd you get the
Yeah.
sauce from?
Okay, great. If you don't, please let me know.
Where'd you get the chicken from? Really?
All right, which of the following is used to calculate
Where'd you get the
a
ingredients for the
MPS?
chicken burger?
Bought them
From what?
at the store.
From what store?
Can't recall.
Oh, okay. What store?
All right, so what does MPS stand for? You're gonna have to know these acronyms for the test. What does MPS stand for? Good guess, motivated potential score. So which is used to calculate a motivating potential score?
I'll leave it through.
All of the above.
Thank you, all the above.
Okay.
These are 3 of the 5 things that we use to calculate a motivating potential score.
That's my emotional.
Give me a little Barbara.
Now we move on to conflict. Excuse me. Which of the following is most likely a statement made by a person with an accommodating conflict handling style?
You want some, Henry?
Very good, A. If it makes other people happy, I'm all for it. Let's go. So the answer is A here. Let's just go through the other ones and see what these would be. B says, I insist that my position be accepted during a disagreement. What style would that be? I insist that my position be accepted. That would be what style? All right, I guess we're not a talkative group today. Forcing or competition. Is what calls a competition. Let's see. I give in to others if they're willing to meet me halfway. That would be what? That's right, compromise. Yeah, you got the last one already. Whew. Oh, maybe you didn't hear the people call out the answer to the last one. The last one is what? ¿Qué es eso? Mira, aquí, dime. ¿Nadie sabe? ¿Cómo?
Is it D?
Sí, pero ¿qué es eso? ¿Es qué?
Compromising?
No. It's D is collaboration. I tried Spanish because it wasn't working. This is collaboration. So first one was accommodating, and then we have competition, and then we have compromise, and then we have collaboration. Itchy has high concern for his goals and low concerns for Scratchy's goals. According to research on conflict handling styles, Itchy will choose a blank style.
Bye, Barbara. Have a good day at work.
What about the pomegranate?
Barbara.
This is.
Barbara.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that. This is competition. I care about me. I don't care about you. I'm going to compete against you. That would be competition.
Oh.
All right, so let's see. Traditional win-lose, fixed amount situations where one party's gain is the other party's loss. Characterized. Wouldn't be integrative, that's a good guess. So win-lose, what's good for me is bad for you, would not be integrative, but distributive, yeah. So distributive is win-lose, fixed pie, what's good for me is bad for you. Let's see, log rolling requires that parties have more than one issue to negotiate. That would be true. Log rolling means there are two issues, we have multiple issues that we feel differently about, and then we make that trade-off. You can't do that with just one issue. There has to be more than one issue. So that's true. The answer for the win-lose question is C, distributive negotiation. The bottom line, Bort is trying to sabotage Wendy's work because she's smelling disagreeable. I bet she is. Bort and Wendy can be best described as being at the blank stage of conflict. So it is manifest. It's not going to be felt because it doesn't talk, it said Bort is angry with Wendy. Bort's anger can be best described as, that would be felt. But since it's Bort behaving towards Wendy, it would be manifest. Because manifest talks about behavior towards someone. All right, so it says, people do what Mr. Burns requests because of the fear that he will fire them. Mr. Burns can be best described as possessing blank power.
Legitimate. See?
So here's the thing, like you have to choose the best answer. So there are really only two options here, right? It's either going to be coercive or legitimate.
Oh.
So the answer is coercive because this is quintessential coercive power right here. So that would be a better answer than legitimate, which is, you know, if the person has a position. So if I said people do what Mr. Burns requests because Mr. Burns is their boss, then that would be legitimate power. Excellent. Yes. Our goal is to choose the best answer here. So this is clearly like that's coercive power right there. There are a lot of things that you do with legitimate power, like you can reward people. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. So it's a much broader. This is a better answer because it's very specific to what's going on right here.
What?
That make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Wouldn't they be their boss if they could fire them, though? In a way, yes. I mean, you could be a vice president and fire someone, I suppose, and you're your boss's boss's boss, or whatever the structure is. But this is the heart. What's at the heart of coercive power is like punishing someone, hurting someone. So it's the best option. It's the best match to what's described right here. Oops. Let me get out of the way. Which of the following is listed as a source of functional and divisional power? This is a recall question, kind of harder recall question, because it's just in your book. And it is all of the above. All three of these things were listed in your book, your book as sources of functional and divisional power. Let's see. So we're doing other types of power here. Dee Dee is able to get people to do what she wants because she's very charismatic. Dee Dee would be best described as having blank power.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Referent power. Someone who's referent power, we said also would be charismatic. So that would be C. The next one is about categories of power. How do we categorize power? It says Paco has a lot of reward power. Its power can be best described as stemming from a blank source. That's right, an organizational source. So we talked about what some books call organizational sources. Your book calls formal individual power, under which reward power falls, and this is separate from the question. There's also informal individual power, what some books call personal power. So this is talking about reward power, which is what we call organizational power. The answer to the one, which is the source of functional individual power, was all of the above. Yes, thank you, Guadalupe. Any more questions before we move on?
No.
All right. Although no one asked him to, Tito started wearing super bell bottoms to work because everyone else in his department was wearing them. Tito is most likely demonstrating guesses for A and B. So let's go through these. So this would be B, conformity. Oops, that's not what I want. I want this. So compliance is when you behave in a particular way, you say something, you do something as a result of a direct request from someone who doesn't have authority over you, the same level. So to make this A, I would say Tito started wearing super bell bottoms to work because his coworker said, "Hey, Tito, you should be wearing the super bell bottoms like us." That would be compliance. He's doing it just because everyone else is. That would be conformity. And if Tito's boss came to him and said, "Hey, Tito, wear your super bell bottoms. Come on, get with the program." And he did it, what would that be?
Obedient.
Obedience. Okay. Any questions about the difference among these three things? Compliance, conformity, and obedience? All right. Let's see, some more categorization type questions. Oh no, this is a compliance gaining techniques question. The last one was conformity. That's correct, Leo. Judy asked Ron to help her go buy a part in San Diego. Ron agrees. She then tells him that she found out she can't go and asks him to do it for her. That's right. This would be lowball. So these are only A, B, and C are only real options. Okay. So it's lowball because you have someone to do something and you say, "Oh, it's not going to work," and then you escalate it. It's much worse to have to go. If no one wants to drive to San Diego, it's even worse just to go by yourself. Usually better to go with someone. So you're escalating it here. The person doesn't actually do it yet. And then you escalate it, and then you ask them for more. That would be the lowball technique. All right, that was round one. Questions about round one? We went through this faster than I did with my other classes because you guys are not really asking a lot of questions. So either you know it better or you're...
There are only 21 questions total, right?
I didn't count them.
Okay.
So, did someone count them? I don't know the number. Also got 20. Great, thank you. All right, so as long as the rate is good, that's fine. I just want you to be happy. So, well, let's move on to round two then. Momentito. So we'll go back to groups and teams, and then we'll go. So Paco's part of a team with workers and other workers in the same area. He and his team have to decide, have to find a design flaw in the engines they produce. Paco can be best described as being part of a task force. The team in his area, so it's not going to be cross-functional. Let's do here. All right, so I have to clear something up here. Second, I'll give you the next one. Can anyone else hear him? You cannot hear me?
Attitude.
So I moved away from the mic a little bit, perhaps. I wasn't talking because I can hear you. Okay. So it was, it's forming. The last question was task force, correct? All right. Petra is part of a team with people from different departments in her company. The team is meeting to decide how to better meet customer needs. Petra can be best described as being very good of a cross-functional team. So we have people from different departments. seems like the best match to a cross-functional team given the information that we have there. Let's see the bottom one. Rika's having an emotional debate over who will lead the group. According to the 5-stage model, it's going to be Tuckman's 5-stage model, the group can be best described as being at the storming stage. That's correct. Storming. So I've asked you a few questions about Tuckman's 5-stage model. What is the other model of group and team development that we talked about? We had another model of development, which was called, should know for the test. Right, punctuated equilibrium. I didn't think you'd get that, but here we are. So make sure you know both models, right? Tuckman's 5-stage model and the punctuated equilibrium model. All right, let's see here. Research indicates that traditional brainstorming is very effective. Is the way people typically do brainstorming effective or not? That's false. Traditional brainstorming is not effective, and your book gives you some, well, here's some things you can do. What was 4? 4 was storming. So they're having an emotional debate. That's most characteristic of a storming stage. So traditional brainstorming is very effective. That's false. It's not. This one here is verbal gymnastics type thing. Which of the following is not a symptom of groupthink? B is group censorship. There's no such thing as group censorship. It's individual or self-censorship. So this is the problem item here. This is not. A is, B is, D is, but not C. It should be individual or self-censorship. So the answer is C here. That's a group and teams question. It's mixed in with the, oh, that's fine. It's group and teams. Oh, so Rico and Suave are not required to communicate with each other very often at work. Each can do his job relatively independently of the other. This situation best describes which of the following types of interdependence. That's right, this would be pooled. We could work independent, that would be pooled interdependence. Of course, so here's job design now. This is a job design question. This is about Hackman and Oldham's model, the job characteristics model, which I told you I'd ask you about. Which following is not a core job dimension? So they talk about 5 core job dimensions. Which one of these is not one of them? That's right, D, responsibility. What is responsibility in the model? Ooh, there's a bonus follow-up question.
Oh,
What is it?
Aiden.
Oh.
Hurry, the kids get up.
It's not one of, it's not a core job dimension. It's a
You wanna go play Switch inside the room?
critical psychological state. Rather than, how about that? Let me try it again. Rather than just working on one part of the engine, Justin now works on 5 parts of the engine. This is most characteristic of what? That's right, this is job enlargement. You did one thing, I gave you 4 more things. I'm doing some horizontal loading here. I'm doing job enlargement.
Sorry, Professor. What was the last one before job enlargement?
This one was none of the above. Or no. I'm sorry. It was D. D. That's
Good.
not one. This is a critical psychological state. I mean, it's a critical psychological state, not a core job dimension. Autonomy, feedback, task identity. These are 3 of the 5 core job dimensions. So, and that one's not one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Kind of a recall question. A cornerstone of job blank is the specialization of labor with the goal of achieving higher efficiency. So that would be engineering.
Ivan, call Tere? What the hell are you
If I
doing?
have you do the same thing over and over, the goal of engineering is for you to
Huh?
be more efficient, and you end up usually just doing the
Ask her
same
if
thing
you can
over
use
and
your
over again.
TV.
But the idea of designing a job so you're really efficient would be job engineering. So I think Ashley got it. If I don't know when the timing was. I know Ashley said something at 1:13. I don't know if that's exactly.
Call Barbara. Ask her for it.
Oh, it's C. So I don't know if Ashley got that. Guessed it when I asked that question or not. Anyway, so let's go through it. What are the three individual difference factors? They're knowledge and skills, growth needs strength, and satisfaction with contextual factors of the work context. So it can't be Paco, who has low growth need strength, not going to respond well. Can't be Juby, because she's not happy with how things are at work, the policy. That would be satisfaction with contextual factors of the work context. It's not going to be Jerby. She's got low skills and abilities. If you have low skills and abilities, you're not going to respond well to job enrichment. So if you are high in self-actualization needs, that would be, you're more towards the top of Maslow's pyramid. I want to grow, be all I can be, those types of things. Someone who feels that way is likely to respond well to job enrichment. They're likely to have high growth need strength. The bottom one here, the JDS is used for job diagnosis. Oh. And by false, you mean true. All right, good. Thank you for always keeping me on my feet. What does JDS stand for? That's a horrible guess.
Job diagnosis survey.
Job diagnostic survey. So the job diagnostic survey is used for job diagnosis. It's a survey that we use to diagnose a job. So when it comes time for the test, you have to remember these acronyms like GNS and JDS. So that statement is true. This bottom statement here is true. That should be an easy one. Which
No,
approach
guys,
to
we're
job
cleaning
design would
after
most likely
I'm done.
produce the highest levels of efficiency and the lowest levels of employee satisfaction?
Ivan, bag, bro, on the floor, on the next to the fridge.
Right, that would be specialization. You're doing the same thing over and over again. It's boring. It's monotonous. You're really good at it, muscle memory, but no one wants to do that job. Well, most people don't. You wouldn't. That's what you said before. Kathleen's company has recently redesigned her job. She now has responsibilities and tasks to perform that were formerly reserved for management and staff specialists. Excuse me. Kathleen's company can be best described as using that's right. This is vertical loading, or we could say it's job enrichment. So as described here, the answer is B, vertical loading. Do you know what E is? Neither do I. I have no idea. Now we're back. Now we're to conflict. NAM is interested in arriving at which job design, okay. This one here, this is highest levels of efficiency, lowest levels of satisfaction with your job specialization. No problem. You're probably thinking Bianca. Any more questions before we move on? Oh, thank you. All right. No. So now we get to we're going back to conflict for the second round, second iteration. NAM is interested in arriving at a distributed solution that is the most fair. NAM would most likely choose a blank conflict handling style. You have to think about this one a little bit. Very good, compromise. So distributive is win-lose, fixed pie, what's good for me is bad for you. Typically with those types of situations where it's like, you can literally imagine a pie in front of you. The fair solution usually is to cut the pie in half. So that would be a compromise solution. That's what we do with compromise, we kind of meet in the middle, or in this case, cut something in half. See how we do with this one. The principles of separate people from the problem and focus on interests, not positions, are part of a distributed bargaining approach. That's right, this is false. So what's wrong with this statement? What makes this false? It just feels false to me.
Pretty much.
Well, let's work on a bit more than that. What's wrong with this? Separate people from the problem and focus on interests, not positions, are not part of a distributed bargaining approach, but rather not distributed, but that's right, integrated. These are 2 of 4 recommendations from a best-selling book on negotiation entitled what? To talk about in class. Yes.
Getting to yes.
By getting to yes. So they talk about 4 things. These are 2 of the 4 things, which are part of integrated bargaining, not distributed bargaining. They talk about how to get to win-win. Let's see. When dealing with conflict, Zayden states, I find it best to probe for the real needs underlying the other person's stated position, and then explore with him or her ways of meeting both our needs through some sort of creative solution. Zayden is most likely referring to the blank conflict handling style. Right, this would be collaboration, where we try to find something that's good for both of us. Where we
took
both
the
get what
PS5
we
too,
want.
but you have to
And that's
wait.
a collaborative approach,
Okay.
a collaboration
with this
style,
class.
a la your
Yeah.
book. So the answer is A.
Kind of ugly kid.
This big. John chooses it did say forcing. Some books call it forcing. Your book calls it competition. John uses a competition style of conflict management. According to research on interpersonal conflict handling styles, John has that's right, a high concern for himself. That'd be the only thing that would yield competition is high concern for yourself. There's a harder true and false question that you need to have read your book. The 3 major sources of interpersonal and intergroup conflict are differentiation, scarcity of resources, and task relationships. What are the answers to the last 2 slides? Momentito. So this one is A, collaboration, and this one is A, concern for himself. Homoa. They're good? Okay? Okay, great. All right, let's get this one wrong. How about this? You give me the wrong answer. C. Good. C would be the wrong answer, but all right. So right. The wrong answer is false. So this is true. I don't want to confuse any. I just wanted to get something from you. So this is the correct answer is true here. So the correct answer is true. The correct answer here. This one here, true. That's the correct answer. Because your book lists these three things, therefore it's correct. All right, so we'll go to correct because it's too confusing otherwise. Itchy and Scratchy have a relationship marked by constant arguing and aggression. This situation best describes blank conflict. Right, it would be manifest conflict. Arguing with someone would be a behavior which would make it manifest. Let's see. Itchy and Scratchy's manager may want to use blank to help to resolve the conflict. That's right. Mediation. We didn't have time to talk about it in this class. There's not a lot of absolutes in organizational behavior, but I can say absolutely never use urine monkeys. Sounds like a great idea. Don't do it. Yeah, it's just me being silly. Actually, it comes from The Simpsons, oddly enough. Is it her picture? There's a picture of Krusty with a urine monkey on his head, but anyway. Since I was going with the Simpsons theme, I decided to use a Simpson one. All right. Most importantly, so your book talks about managers intervening in a conflict. It talks about mediation and arbitration, a mediator and arbiter. All right, did it solve the conflict? It wasn't used for conflict resolution. I just thought it would be a funny thing to say. I get bored with this stuff. I want something that makes me happy. Not obviously. Sometimes I like to just throw something in because this is my life. All right. Here we go. So now back to power. Which of the following is listed as a tactic for increasing individual power? Sorry, all of the above are. So your book lists all three of those: controlling the agenda, bringing in an outside expert, and building coalitions and alliances as ways that we can increase the power that we have. So the answer is D, all of the above. And the next one is kind of a categorization question, which I think are easier as on average because it's just some rote memorization in a way. Obviously, conceptually, you have to know how things line up. Which of the following was listed as a source of informal individual power? It would be expert power. So D is informal individual, or what we also call personal. Answer is D. Another categorization type question.
Wait, Professor. Oh wait, never mind. Sorry. We're good.
Okay. reward power, right, is an organizational source. So this one about Paco is organizational. This one you're gonna have to think about for a second. The potential of a supervisor to give out punishment is blank power, while an employee's identification with the goals of the supervisor is an indication of the supervisor's blank power. It's a harder one, so the answer would be D. So let's look at it. Giving out punishment seems to best characterize coercive, so we're leaning in the coercive power. So it leans toward coercive. So let's look at A and D. Identifying with the supervisor's goals. That seems more like a referent power. So the answer would be coercive and referent would be D. All right. Now, this should be easy, given that we kind of talked about this stuff before. Although no one asked him to, Chip styled his hair so that he looked like all the other guys in his company. Chip can be best described as demonstrating, that's right, that would be conformity. He's just behaving like everyone else. No one asked him to, he's just kind of trying to fit in, I guess. Okay. Because Gerbina is the most knowledgeable person in her department about computers, people usually follow her recommendations. Gerbina would be best described as having power that stems from a blank source. So, right, it's personal because what's described here is expert, most knowledgeable in her department about computers, so it sounds like she has expert power, and expert power would fall into a personal source of power. So this one has two steps. First, identifying the type of power that we see here, and then saying, oh, okay, this is expert power, and then therefore it would fall under the personal source of the power. Yes, subproteins. Which of the following individuals is most likely to be politically active in an organization? Right, it would be Bort. So we talked about locus of control as being a personality characteristic that is associated with the use of political behavior in organizations. So because Bort has an internal locus of control, he's more likely to be politically active. A big question. Bort wants a date with his coworker Chris. He first suggests that they go on vacation together. Chris says no. Then he asks Chris to go out to coffee with him. Chris agrees. Chris isn't very smart here. Bort is most likely using the blank technique to induce compliance. So it would be door in the face, correct? So he's asking for way more than he expects, making an unreasonable first request, a really large request to set up, making the smaller request. So here's and so our only real options are low ball, foot in the door, and door in the face. There's no such thing as, he might get a foot in the face, but that's not a technique. It's going to be answers A, B, or C.
Oh, so which one was the last one?
This one is C, because locus of control is a personality dimension that influences the degree to which people engage in political behavior in organizations. So internals are more politically active than externals.
Gotcha.
Yes, Chris should go to HR. Well, she could. Anyway, yeah, go to HR. Who'd ask someone to go on vacation with it? Anyway, creepy. Anyway, yikes for board. Yes, certainly yikes for board. HR will be talking to board soon. Anyway, but you understand the technique here? And please don't do this. It's going to get you in trouble. If board said, hey, Chris, let's have some would you like to go get some coffee? And then later board said, hey, Chris, would you like to go to a movie? Then what would that be? That's right. That would be foot in the door. All right. So it seems like we got this. Now we finally get to culture questions, which are things that we have not seen because we didn't see them in the first iteration. And here we are seeing them in the second iteration. So this is kind of a vocabulary type question from the culture and ethics chapter. A blank is a desired goal that an organization seeks to achieve. And that would be a terminal value. The book talks about terminal and instrumental values. Very good. Terminal and instrumental values. So that would be C, as in cat. These may be a bit harder since we haven't gone through an iteration of these. Juby tells her new employees information about the company and what they need to do to be successful. The process can be best described as organizational. That's right, socialization. Welcome to our company. You go through the employee orientation. That's part of organizational socialization. Kind of some vocabulary here to begin. Another vocabulary question. Blank ethics are moral values that a group of similarly trained people develop to control their performance of tasks or use of their resources. So we have similarly trained people. That's probably going to be, right, professional. In Pablo's company, the central concern of employees is job security. This concern persists even when organizational membership changes. Beliefs about the importance of job security can be best characterized as it's not going to be a shared assumption. Shared assumptions are basic beliefs about human beings that people are basically good or bad, and thus employees are basically good or bad. So it's not going to be A. It's not that level, because it's not that about basic beliefs about human beings. It talks about what is valued in the organization. What's valued at this company is job security. So that would be what? D, right? A cultural value. That's what I experienced when I went old school IBM when I traveled across the U.S. It's a big deal, job security and loyalty.
You said it was D?
Correct. According to your text, the concept of organizational language does not extend to nonverbal communication. That's correct. That it is false, that statement. It does extend to nonverbal communication. The managers at Rika's company share a consistent set of values and methods for getting work done. Rika's company appears to have a blank culture. This would be a strong culture. Good. Let's see how you do with this. Homer wants to change the culture of his organization. According to the lecture, which of the following would be the second easiest to change? Very good, shared behaviors. So remember we went over, let's see, I guess we can just do this. People, the other sections they struggled with, oops. I'll go back to screen sharing in a second because I have another question, but let me, other sections had an issue with this. You probably don't, but I'll do it anyway. So remember, this is hardest to see, hardest to change. And we go all the way to easiest to see and easiest to change. So hardest to see, hardest to change, and then we go all the way to easiest to see, easiest to change. Obviously, it's very easy to change a symbol, how people dress and stuff like that. That's the second easiest to change, third easiest to change, and obviously the hardest to change. Or the first hardest to change, the second hardest to change, the third. All right, I think you get it. And your last question. Some name I can't pronounce. Wants to know why his organization has the culture it does. On what should focus. That's right, all of the above. What was the answer to the Homer question? Homer was second easiest to change, which would be shared behaviors. What was the topic for the beginning of round one? Round one was just the first iterations of questions. I went through all the questions twice. So once through and a second time through. Jennifer, does that answer your question? The topic was the topic for the beginning of round one? All right, other questions? We have 7 minutes. What was the answer for the principles? That was, I don't know, let me go back. Yeah. This one was false because it's part of integrative part, not distributive. Other questions? Yeah, let's see. I can't, that is all of the above. I tried to take a name from Socia something or other from Spanish and try to make a name that could not be pronounced. Well, I can't pronounce it. So someone who speaks Spanish might have the best chance at this, but yeah, maybe that's a nickname. Please go over the hardest to easiest change. Okay, so this one here it says, what would be the second easiest to change? So in lecture we went over hardest to change, hard to see, hard to change, which is shared assumptions, and then we go all the way out. So if we go back to lecture, shared assumptions, hardest to see, hardest to change, and then still hard to see, hard to change, but not as hard to see or hard to change as this, then cultural values, then shared behaviors, then cultural symbols. Or if we look at it the other way, easiest to change cultural symbols, second easiest, third easiest, and most difficult. The answer to the definition for the desired goal an organization seeks to achieve would be a terminal value. Other questions? All right, so let's see. So we have one thing left. Let me just make a final closing statement. I know this hasn't been easy. It's not an easy class. I'm sorry that you had to take an online class, which is not probably not our preferred way of doing things. I'd much rather have class in person. Plus, we have a global pandemic. People are out of jobs. Social injustice is a horrible time in our country. And so thank you for sticking with class. I know it's a difficult time in our world and in our country. Good luck on your final. Good luck on your future. Most importantly, please be safe. Well, your future, of course, most important. Please be safe. Make good choices. Good luck with your future and everything that you do. So I'll hang around for questions. And if not, good luck.
Thank you, Professor.